I'm Ed Adams, and you're listening to the AFCA Podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the AFCA Podcast. On this episode, we talk to President of Array, Tilane Jones. We'll get into the business of things right after the break. The AFCA Podcast is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. Ava Duverney's company, Array, does more than just produce amazing film. In fact, the company distributes independent film and is a resource collective comprised of arts advocacy organizations, volunteers, and donors from around the world with one goal: to amplify films by people of color and women of all kinds. Now, since its creation in 2010, Array has elevated independent film voices, distributing over 30 projects, including the 2011 Sundance Award Winning KINYARWANDA, Ava Duverney's 2012 film, the award-winning Middle of Nowhere, Vaya, the 2016 Africa Academy Award-winning film directed by Akin Omotoso, and the Emmy Winning documentary 13th, to name a few. The person who has been lockstep with Ava Duverney throughout this journey from the beginning has been Tilane Jones. Jones has been working as a producer for over a decade. Not only does she oversee the company's many releases, but also oversees the Array Alliance, the nonprofit dedicated to social impact, and also education at the Array Creative Campus that provides production support for up-and-coming filmmakers. Now, I had a chance to speak with Tilane via Zoom about her role at Array, her journey as a producer, and what lessons she's learned during the pandemic. Tilane Jones, thank you so much for being a part of the AFCA Podcast.
Of course, Ed. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor. I was very surprised to receive the invitation, and I think I probably answered within like 5 seconds. So
that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's something unique about, knowing Ava for such a long time and understanding the power of Array. It's really good that we have this partnership. I think we do have a partnership, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've known Gil just as long as I've known Ava. We, at one point, I think we were even publicists for AFCA, in the AFCA Awards. So it's been a long history. It's been over 11 years and absolutely more than a partnership. AFCA and Gil, they're family.
Okay. I'm part of the family too.
Yeah.
Great. So let's just go back. So tell me, how did you get started in the business, and just tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I actually had another career before I started working in the business. I was working in the mortgage lending industry. I had my real estate license. I had worked for a property management company. So I worked a lot with real estate and lending for over a decade, probably about 12, 13 years. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at the time, at the end of my career, the country had a market crash, and that left me laid off from a mortgage lender that I was working with. And so I was working independently, doing a lot of loan processing, working for different mortgage brokers. And I had just always had kind of a steady job, I'd always worked for a company. I always kind of, had medical insurance, and it was just an uncomfortable feeling for me to really work independently in that way. And I had a friend that was a friend of Ava's, and she still had her PR marketing company at the time, the Duverney agency. She let her know that she was looking for a office manager / assistant. And so I applied for the job. I can remember getting public relations for dummies, because I had no clue of what public relations was. I was familiar with marketing, through working in real estate, but public relations, I had no clue. But I made it through the interview. Thank God. I had met with Aline Miles, who had worked closely with Ava for many years. And then I met with Ava, and she was a pioneer in the PR and marketing space as well, as far as niche marketing for huge films like Dreamgirls, Collateral. There's a long list of films that her agency worked on and worked on through the studios. And I was fortunate enough to come into my position at a time where she had just finished her first feature documentary, This Is the Life. I was able to participate in the festival process of that film and some of the editing process of that film. And so when I entered the entertainment industry, I had no clue. I had no clue of what impact economically the entertainment industry had on Los Angeles. I lived in a suburb and worked in real estate, and that's what I knew. And so I think I know I'm extremely fortunate to have come into the industry working with Ava, with all the knowledge that she had, with all the passion and the vision that she has as a leader, and to come in while she was starting to make her own films and come in the independent space when I really thought I didn't want to be independent, but ended up working, in that independent space anyway. I was very fortunate because I've been able to work, in so many different facets of the industry, being on set, being everything from craft services to associate producer to co-producer to, I don't think there's anything that I haven't done as far as, working on a set in some format. I was director's assistant on Selma, and just, being a part of that day to day and working closely with Ava's producing partner, Paul Garnes. I've had a career for sure.
I mean, that's incredible. But now you're president.
I am.
Tell me, take me back to that day. How did you feel when you found out?
I was surprised. I was vice president before, and to be president, I don't know. I just, I can't even tell you how I felt on that day. I think, just overall, my career has just been a surprise to me. Everything that we've done, everything that we've impacted. But of course, I was ecstatic and really hopeful that I'd be able to, hold that title and work at the level that you need to work at when you are president of multiple companies, not just one. Just keeping my boss happy.
I hear you. So speaking of that, like when you think about Array, it's not just a production company. There's a lot of different pieces to it. It kind of reminds me of how Sundance is. Why don't you, if you don't mind, like for our audience to understand, can you break all that down for us? Like what exactly is Array and how is it actually structured?
Yeah. Array is 4 pillars, and Array started with our distribution arm, which is Array Releasing. It was formerly the African American Film Festival Releasing Movement, AFIRM. We started that over almost 10 years ago, where we actually acquire and distribute films by filmmakers of color and women of all kinds. We are, if not at 30, very close to 30 titles that we've distributed over the years. We went from distributing 2 titles to now we're up to 6 titles a year. Our second pillar is Array Alliance, which is our newly formed nonprofit. It's about 2 years old. It'll be 3 years old in April. And we do a lot of our programming through Array Alliance, just continuing the elevation of filmmaking for filmmakers of color and women of all kinds. We have Array Filmworks, which is our development and production arm. any work that you see from Ava television, film, music videos, fashion films, anything like that comes from Array Filmworks. And then our final pillar is Array Campus, which is a 3-building campus located in historic Filipino town in Los Angeles. It is a Black woman-owned campus, 3 buildings. Unfortunately, we're not on the campus anymore, but we miss it so much. Before COVID struck, we had done a ton of programming out of the campus. And the crown jewel is our Amanda Cinema, which is a 50-seat screening room where we're able to program, films from all over the world, as well as have theatrical releases for the films that we distribute through Array Releasing.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a powerful thing. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, when I was doing my research about you, one of the things I saw was a lot of videos where you were on panel. And there was this one panel that stood out to me. And it was this panel from 2019. And the subject was the road to decolonization. Can you talk to me about that experience and what was discussed about it? And more specifically, how does it align to what we already know as Array's mantra?
Yeah. It was a panel that I participated on with the amazing Heather Ray, who's a native producer. She was the moderator of the conversation, and it was in New Zealand, which is a beautiful place. And what struck me so much about my experience visiting New Zealand was how they really honored Indigenous people. Put them on the forefront as, just even acknowledging the land that we were on, that it belonged to someone else. And I think, a lot of what Array does is that acknowledgement. We take artists and filmmakers and we elevate them, folks that you may not have known of or ever heard of. We try to give them that platform so that they're able to do their work and continue to do their work, whether it is distributing their films or if it's, Ava on Queen Sugar, making sure that every single episode is directed by a woman so that they never have the obstacle of being told you can't direct TV because you've never directed a TV show. To the programming that we do and just exposing the community and making sure that all of our programming is free to the public so that if they want to come and join us when we're having a Filipino X, a film series, that they can come and see these films, classic films all the way to modern day films that you may have never been able to be exposed to. And so, I think, that acknowledgement is something that we do very well at Array, and just really breaking down barriers and breaking down walls and, not allowing a certain system to stop us from doing the important work that needs to be done. That's why it was so important for Ava to have the campus that we have so that artists can be in a space where they feel safe and that they know it's for them, because a lot of creatives who are of color don't have that space to be able to be creative. And so, that is, one step towards kind of breaking the barrier of colonization is having our own, building our own, and making sure that we have the infrastructure to have that institution. So, through Array, we're institution building, by having all of these different platforms open and available to artists.
That's awesome. That's awesome. This makes me smile. I absolutely love it. And even on even more so than that, I saw something on your website, which I just absolutely love. I just love these mavericks, right? Yeah. That was like the coolest thing with the slogan you have is like rebel with us. Talk to me about the origins of that and who are these people and what are you trying to accomplish with this?
Absolutely. I mean, Array, we do not work in isolation. I think the kind of the groundwork of what we do really comes from our volunteers, who we call Mavericks. They are people who love films. They are filmmakers. They are people who might have an interest in film or entertainment, actors, producers, that come to volunteer for us and have since the very beginning. Whether it's, sharing social media, whether it is participating and helping us when we're having screening events, getting the word out, supporting the filmmakers that we distribute their films, doing Mav chats. So we call our volunteers Mavericks. We call our small donors Rebels. That just came out of, at the time, Ava was really taking the money that she was making out of her filmmaking to kind of sustain, the distribution of these films. And so we needed a lot of help. It was the three of us. It was Ava, myself, and my colleague, Mercedes Cooper. And we were doing all these things, just the three of us. And so, we weren't doing it alone because we had these volunteers. We had these small donors giving $25, $50, $10, just to sustain us and make sure that we were able to, continue to do the work that we were doing, not just making films and creating, media, but also amplifying other creators that were doing the same thing.
Side note, one of my favorite movies that you've done is The Burial of Kojo. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that film. It is such a beautiful spectacle to see. I love the idea of that, how just inherently like Array's mantra and your motto is really to kind of uplift and embrace, right? And I just think that's such a powerful thing. But 2020 kind of changed the way we look at things, right? And it has not really been a good year for film. Array has always been ahead of the curve, like innovating stuff. I mean, you were part of the streaming movement and conversations long before all of these larger, big distribution companies are. But how has it affected, Array's vision for 2020?
Yeah. Like you said, we really, I think just out of a need of not having the budgets that a lot of major studios have, we've always had to think outside of the box. We've always had to galvanize things that, maybe, standard folks in the industry might not lean towards. So social media has always been huge for us. It's a free way for us to kind of market and promote these films and these filmmakers. And then, having a special relationship with our distribution with Netflix and having the films stream on Netflix. We're one of the very few distributors that actually have a direct to Netflix deal for these films. And so, having that relationship, and we've had that relationship for years, really knowing how important it is to have this work on a platform that allows so many people to see it, not just, in a small room, which we all love to do, but on a international scale, where, you can get millions of eyeballs on something that we never would have been able to do as independent distributors, because we just didn't have the budgets to be able to do that, to actually have a film and book it in 100 theaters. There's no way we could have done that. So, that the digital streaming, we've always been, passionate about that and making sure really that our films are seen by everyone that wants to see the film. I think, that's always been our mantra, whether it is, on your television, if it's in your backyard. We work with tons of festivals, the smaller film festivals in the world, like Bronze Lens and Urban World and Langston Hughes and Gary International Film Festivals that you may never hear of. We've always made it our mission to work with them because we know as filmmakers, how passionate they are about the filmmakers that they work with that kind of come through their pipeline. And they help us, on a community level, be able to galvanize their audiences behind these films. And that's what really, started Affirm Array releasing and has kept us going, is these special partnerships that we've had with these organizations, with these film series, and just community around the world who have really supported us and helped us, get these films out and get the word out. And, education is another, pillar of what we do and part of our mantra at Array, and educating audiences and allowing them to be able to see a film that has subtitles, like The Burial of Kojo, right? that probably would not have been picked up by another distributor or, been seen in multiple theaters. Except for the fact that we know how important it is for our audience, for the people that we cater to, for the Black community, for the Indigenous community, for the Asian community, to see this type of work, to see their representation on screen, even if it has subtitles. And we've shown that, these types of titles really do touch our communities, and that they travel really well internationally. People want to see this. People, now that we're in COVID and Corona virus is really stricken us, and we have to be in our homes, watching whatever we can, digesting anything, music, books, films. I think the industry is kind of opening their eyes, like, no, people have a desire to see this type of work, which is something that we always knew. Ava, again, was a publicist and a marketer way before she was a filmmaker. And she knew that Black and Brown audiences were hungry for this type of content, not just the big blockbusters, but really, the stories that center us. That's always really important for us at Array, through all of our pillars, is seeing work, seeing films, seeing media that is not only made by us, but seen by us as well. So, COVID is kind of just expanded how we've worked and how we, kind of think outside of the box. We've had to do a lot more, IG live conversations, Zoom conversations. We've done a drive-in series. We're actually going to have 2 more films that we're screening on October 30th and 31st in a drive-in. We've been able to kind of think about other platforms that stream and how we can possibly improve that. And create something for ourselves that kind of caters to the film audience that we have. So I think it's really, we could definitely focus on the negative. We've lost loved ones. People are hurting in the film industry as far as, not being able to be in productions, all those things. We could definitely focus on that, but I just really like to focus on the positive and kind of how we've just had to come together as a community. And at the same time, we've really had to kind of think outside of the box and really, put other standards out there that may have been ignored before, right? Just artists of color. I feel like this is such an opportunity for them because people are hungry for it. And now we see it all because of Corona. Hopefully I answered your question. That was a long
No, you did. You did. It's everybody, I think the industry has really been affected by it. And again, Array has done so many innovative ways of just kind of putting the word out there. I mean, I truly do feel that Array is a community more so than a studio or production company. And I think most of the people who follow you understand that as well. So you answered the question perfectly. And thank you for that. So tell me about some of the projects you have coming up. I'm sure that we're getting close to award season. Something's got to be coming out.
We do. We actually were able to release 2 films during the past 7 months. Lingua Franca by a trans woman filmmaker, Filipino, Isabel Sandoval, and also Residue by a first-time filmmaker, Marare Garima. And both beautiful films. We are going to be releasing I Knew Mosir by Takeshi Fukunaga, who's actually a second-time filmmaker. It's our very first time of having a filmmaker allow us to distribute 2 films for them. That's going to be on October 17th on Netflix. And then our kind of crown jewel for 2020 is Funny Boy by seminal filmmaker Netadeepa. And that will be coming out on December 10th. So on Netflix. So those 2 titles we're really excited about, really working hard to get that out. And then from the Array Filmworks side, they have so many things going on. Queen Sugar is back in production and shooting in New Orleans. So we're really excited about that and kind of getting to the end of production so that, season 5 can be out there for the world, and just a slew of other projects through our development and production team.
That's awesome. I can't wait. I got my Netflix account right behind me.
Yeah.
So,
Good, good,
so
yay.
my final question is, this is a personal question. But this is like, 2020 has changed a lot of people's lives. It's made us all kind of rethink how we see the world and how we see people and our family and everything else. What has 2020 taught you?
Yeah. As I said before, I think it's just the re-emergence of how important arts are for our mental well-being. Um, you know, Again, people just hungry to consume everything they can, across multiple platforms. We've seen it, we're at home with our families, we're at home alone, and I think the first thing that many people reach for is art in some form, whether it's film, whether it's TV, books, art itself, physical art itself. And I think, a lot of that had been lost over the years, due to defunding, due to, it not being a priority for many corporations and political parties, feeling like art wasn't a necessity. And I think, through 2020, I've really learned what a necessity it is for me anyway. And I feel like other people are feeling that too. And I think it's not just that, but also, I feel with everything that's going on, with the deaths of so many of our brothers and sisters, from the hands of police, through Corona, all those things, just really having our voices being heard. Hopefully allies are seeing what we need, instead of dictating to us what we need, and assisting us in just stopping a lot of this heinous hurt and anguish that comes upon our community. And so, I'm staying hopeful, that we'll be out of this at some point, and that we've learned a lot of good things that we can take into the future, that this is not just a moment, that, we're going to figure out how to really take these things and elongate them, so that we don't ever come back in history and say, this was just a moment and it's no longer here, but that it's kind of standard as far as, who we are as a people and who we are as artists.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I was just thinking what you just said. And for me, it made me reevaluate how much time I I spend on frivolous things. I
Mm,
worry about some things, and then I personally lost family members. I have friends who lost family members, and it made me think about how where my values lie,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And like you're saying, it made me it reaffirmed me to be creative again, like use that energy to do something else. And so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's words to live by with that. Words
Yeah.
to,
I mean, during Corona, I became a gardener. Who knew? I had no idea. Not a
what?
real
Me
gardener, but you know what I
too.
mean?
I'm
That
a
I could actually keep a
gardener
plant alive. I didn't even feel like that was something that I could do. And so, just kind of really stepping back and also grounding ourselves and really figuring out what's important, I think too, is we've
too.
had that kind of time and breath to be able to do that because you get so busy, trying to do all the different things that you're doing day to day. And I know you mentioned you looked at my Twitter and you were like, it was all business. And I'm like, for um, 11 years of my life, it has been all business. You know what I mean? It's been
Hmm.
very consuming and very nourishing for me, to do the work that I do. But at the same time, that 30-minute drive that I would take to work, back and forth. Now I have that extra hour every day, to
Hmm.
do, some of the things that kind of just bring us closer together and bring us home and keep us nurtured. So I'm happy about that.
That's awesome. You're an angel and a blessing.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. And I'm so happy to hear, how you see Array and what we do and what our mission is. I'm like blown away, by the things that you said. So thank you.
I've always been a fan. Always been a fan. You can count on me. Check that off your list.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I'm seriously awe-inspired just talking with you. I know that I heard you have Southern roots as well.
I do, yeah.
I'm from Atlanta.
Prattville, Alabama.
What part?
Prattville, right outside of Montgomery.
Okay. My dad's from Montgomery and my mom is from Luverne.
Oh, we might be related.
I have to go check my ancestry now. What's up, cousin? Well, again, thank you so much for your time.
Wish you the best and stay safe out there.
All right. Thank you so much. And you take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That was Tilane Jones, president of Array. Now, if you'd like to know more about Array upcoming releases like Funny Boy by Deepa Mehta and Anu Mosir by Takashi Fukunaga, or if you'd like to know more about how to become a maverick or a rebel, you can find all this by visiting their website at arraynow.com. And be sure to follow Array on Twitter and Instagram for news, upcoming releases, and events. And that's our show. Thanks again to Tilane Jones for taking part in this interview. Now, did you know that AFCA members took a detailed look back at entertainment in 2020? Well, we did, and you can watch what we thought about the films, TV shows, and performances of the year by visiting the AFCA channel on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So until next time, keep your head up.